Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mental Health Warriors, the Power Hour of Self-Care. I'm Annette Chappie, your host, and I'm here with a whole bunch of guests today. I hope they will pop in and say hello because it's a very special day. It's not my exact anniversary, but it has been 1 year since I've been hosting the Power Hour of Self-Care. And I gotta tell you, it's been life altering for me. So please, if you're tuning in, I hope you have already subscribed. If you haven't, you can do so after. But I'm going to invite the guests on very shortly after I play the intro. So sit back and enjoy. And we're back. And I see that two of my guests, lovely ladies, have shown up. And they've both been previous guests on the show. And of course, everyone should know Carrie, our queen warrior. Hi, girls.
Hi.
Nice to be on
Cindy.
again.
Yes, I'm
Yes,
so
it
happy
is.
to
It's been
see
a
you
while.
both, and nice to meet you, Carrie.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
And so, as I had prior to the intro said that, wait, I'm going to switch over to comments in case there's somebody saying some comments. It's a very special time for me. I'm celebrating 1 year of the show. And you know what? It was a huge commitment for me and such a huge learning curve. And it's broken down barriers for me, not only about my own mental health and wellness, but also about being able to communicate more profoundly, more with more awareness about other people's views on mental health and wellness. And you ladies have made a huge difference with your stories and sharing with me and coming on. And, you know, so maybe we'll start with Yvonne because Yvonne, how have things been for you since our meeting? It hasn't been too long. We
It
had ours
hasn't.
recently.
Yes, it was, I want to say the beginning of March. Things have been hectic for me, as you know, around that time. There was a death in my family, a tragic death in my family. Two of my dear family members passed in a house fire. So it's been challenging. And not only that, but I've been dealing with my own issues with my mom and anger towards my mom. A lot of things are coming up in therapy that I've never allowed myself to experience and feel before. So, the journey continues. It's a constant journey, as everyone knows.
Yes, yes. And sometimes dealing with old stuff that's from the past with our parents is not the easiest thing to deal with.
No, no. And a lot of it is surrounding parental betrayal and the ways that, my mom betrayed me from, not protecting me from perpetrators to staying friends with perpetrators to this day. Just the other day, um, basically said, "You've been in therapy for 8 years and it hasn't helped you at all." Um,
That's
if
shocking.
only if only she had known where I started, and that just goes to show you that she has no clue. And so that's just been a challenging thing for me to address because anger's always been an emotion that I've been afraid of because I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know, would I, lose my mind? Would I be destructive? Would I yell? What would that look like?
Mhm.
And what I'm learning is it looks like me just being very blunt and open and honest and telling my mom, "You let me down." I had a phone call with her. "You let me down." And, on the phone, she was like, "I understand. I'm so proud of you." And then as soon as she hangs up, she tells a family member, um, that she's not talking about my book, she's not talking about my past, she's not talking about anything anymore. So that's where I am with that. And I don't know if either of you have experience with that, but it's infuriating,
Yeah,
Yeah.
disappointing.
yeah, I do. I've had similar issues with my own mother to the point now where I've completely blocked her out of my life. A lot of using me as a weapon with my dad, playing past the parcel with me with my dad when they separated. Um, a lot of emotional neglect, telling me that I was a mistake, that she didn't want me, and everything like that. So I've had a lot of issues with that, and now I've blocked her out of my life, and now I've got to re-deal with everything because unfortunately there was an incident over Easter holidays involving my mum, and it brought back a lot of horrible memories. Now it's, I tried to reconnect with her and have that relationship with her, but it just didn't work. Now I told her, I literally had to scream at her to get out of my life, and I didn't want her involved with me or baby or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's one of them.
exactly where I am. I'm at that point where I have to decide, and it's even hard for me to say, but I think I've decided that I want to cut her off, and that's what I'm trying to decide if that's the best thing, because like you, I've spent 7 or 8 years trying to patch things up with my mom and giving her so much grace and compassion and understanding for her mistakes. And
Yeah,
to have her betray me in that way, and she even said to me, "You torment me every day with this." And I'm like, "I torment you? I don't even talk to you. How do I torment you every day?
mm,
If anything, I've protected you. If anything, I haven't talked about things. I haven't told you how I really feel." And so it's just that gaslighting and the action not matching words. The words not matching the action. I
yep,
support you when she's on the phone, and then when she hangs up, it's, "Well, I'm not gonna talk to her anymore unless da da da." And it's like, I'm just sick of that two-facedness, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Two-faced.
Yeah. Well, it's a total I experienced not with my mother. For me, I didn't put I put the majority of my emotional trauma on my father, not on my mother. Although she did have a huge part of what happened to me, as my therapist had explained to me, that the triangle, there's the perpetrator, there's the perpetrator, the victim, and then the enabler.
Mm,
So my mother was the role of the enabler, my father was the perpetrator, and of course I was the victim. And once that was explained to me, I was able to look at my mother in a different light, and as well as my father, because I didn't want that black cloud of what he'd done. And like, he not only manipulated me, he manipulated my mother.
mhm.
But as the years passed, and I discovered that, oh, we have another guest that's joining us. I'll come back to that thought. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hi, Annette. Doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy you've joined us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We're heading out soon to see the poppies.
The
So,
poppies?
yeah, in California, it's like a big thing. There's a poppy reservation, and this year they're like all over the place. The last few years, it's been
Oh,
like
wow.
a couple here
Will you
and
be
there.
taking
But
will
yeah.
you be taking pictures?
Oh, yeah. Lots and lots of photos. Yeah. So
Most
there's
awesome.
millions of them. It looks like the Wizard of Oz. I mean, I
Oh,
think
I'd
that's
love
what
wow.
to
they
see
filmed it.
that.
Yeah, I think because it's just insanely beautiful. Yeah.
Nice. Mike, do you know Carrie?
I do not. Hi, Carrie.
Hiya,
Carrie
how are you?
Duvall.
Good,
Yes,
good. Hi, Yvonne.
she's our
Hi,
warrior
Mike.
queen.
How are you?
Yvonne was a past guest. Mike
Wonderful.
has been a past guest. So
Awesome.
this is wonderful. I love it.
Congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you.
I can't
was
believe it's been a year, Annette.
I
know.
know.
It's like poof. And I was telling the girls, Mike, I said, I might get emotional because this means so much to me.
Sure. Absolutely.
It means the world, like not only like I was sharing before we went live, was it took me a lot of courage to come on and do a podcast because I've been working on my speaking skills for a while through Toastmasters and things like that, but video always seemed to elude me. And it was the comfort of how Adam put together the show, and being a guest first on the show kind of just opened the door for me. Yeah. And, you guys made it super easy for me to be a host and sharing so freely and openly. And we all have the same message about mental health and well-being. And it made it so easy. I was home. Like I felt really, really at home having this show.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you're doing great things. I mean, I don't know if we had talked since I was on, but a friend of mine had watched it, and she came to me and said that my abuser actually raped her when she was 13, and she hasn't talked about it in like 40 years.
Wow. Can I ask a question? I want to clarify.
Yes.
Someone came to you when they saw you on this show and said the exact same person that abused you also abused her?
Yes. Yep. And
Wow.
she said it was so hard. It's been so hard for her to really talk about it. She said it was very emotional to watch the show, and she was like reliving it again because my abuser was like maybe 12 years older than her. She was 13 and he was 25.
Wow. So, may I ask, was it a clergyman member, a teacher?
No, sadly it was my uncle. It was
yes.
one of my uncles did it. Yeah.
I can relate to that. I've also been abused by an uncle, 2 of them as well. So I can relate.
Just for sure. I mean, the power of the warriors, because we put these shows out and everything like that, and if it can help one person, then that's our job done, because we only want to help. We want to help as many people as we can, but if we can help just one person, like come and speak to you, Mike, that's us, job done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, when I spoke with Annette, I shared my story that, I didn't say anything for 12 years because my uncle said he would kill my mother and he would, hurt my grandmother, his own mother. And so I didn't say anything until he was going to he was on trial for abusing an autistic teenager. And everyone was like, he would never do that. And I said, yes, he would, because he did it to me for 2 years from age 7 to 9. So yes, he would. He ended up going to prison. Thank you. Hey, sorry, Ricky, but he went to prison for 18 years and and
so now justice is done now then.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing then.
Yes, and then Annette knows. I mean, he passed away last October. So it was, I had people who knew my story contact me and say, how do you feel? And I said, I feel relieved, because he would continuously try to friend me on Facebook, and I would contact Facebook and say, he's a child predator and a felon. He's not supposed to have an account. And their response was, oh, well, just block him if you have an issue. It's like, no, this is illegal. He's not supposed to have an. And I sent them all the documents of his felony, and they were like, well, I'm like, no, well, just get him off. And they let him stay on for 6 years. They let him stay on. And
it is shocking.
Young
people.
It
is. I have to tell you, Mike, before we move on, how proud I am of you.
Thank
that
you.
you came forward in that moment to make
Yeah.
sure that that person was held accountable? Because I know that wasn't easy for you.
No.
It took
Yeah,
so
massive well
much
done.
courage. Just well done. So proud of you. And I hope that
you.
you know what you've done.
Yes.
Yeah,
And you've made
massive well
a
done,
difference
Mike.
in
That's it. It
someone's
does
life.
take a
That's
lot
for
of
sure.
strength to stand up.
I know that he
Yeah.
got, he had 18 years of no abusing people, at least. It
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
we saved the world of 18 years of him. And then he got out, and then he tried to rob a bank. And then
Oh,
he went back to prison for a
Really?
couple of years. Yeah.
He
With the
probably
woman
did it
he met
deliberately
while
because
he
he
was in
couldn't.
prison.
Yeah, he couldn't accommodate living outside of the prison walls.
mm-hmm,
No,
mm-hmm,
no.
It's sad,
Yeah.
but it's reality.
But yeah, and
mm-hmm.
then we move on and we do this and we share our
Yeah.
stories and encourage other people to share them and not to live in their past, but to speak about it and let go of it and be free from it.
Right.
Because you
Right.
can't be free if you
Absolutely.
don't acknowledge it. You can't be free unless you
Absolutely.
talk about
Mm-hmm.
it and say,
Yeah.
this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got a past.
Yes.
Like sometimes it's horrible, sometimes it's nice,
Yeah.
sometimes it's mixed.
Yeah. Exactly.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So prior to you coming on, Mike, we were talking about how the triangle actually popped up because Yvonne was sharing with us about what she has been experienced. I asked, how is mental health for you today, since we last been on the show, and she was sharing with us about her mom and her two sides of her, and how she's one way with her and another way with other people.
Oh, wow.
And I was talking about the triangle of the perpetrator, the victim, and the enabler, and how my story is my father was the perpetrator, my mother was the enabler, and of course I was the victim.
Yeah.
But when my father passed away, it was maybe 2-3 years ago, and because I knew he was so toxic. I had finally removed him from my life and didn't talk to him anymore from, oh God, it'd been a long time. And I only learned of his death through my relatives. And it was a year after the fact.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel anything. Thankfully, I think was because I had put to bed all those traumas surrounding what he'd done.
Right.
And the only thing I remember on our show when we shared about that you came out and spoke up against your uncle was that I'd wished I'd done the same with my father, which I didn't do.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So I don't know if anyone else suffered at his hands, but I pray to God that nobody did. But that's
Right.
totally beyond my control.
Right. And that's the thing too, is that I had a moment when I heard about that autistic teenager that I started to blame myself because I could have said something, but then I realized that, you know what, I'm not the victim. I mean, I used to use that word, but it's like I had my hands tied because there were threats to people that I loved and people that I knew, like my mother, who was very vulnerable, and I couldn't say anything because of that. So when it did finally come out, I was just like, no. Because the thing he didn't know about was that while I was in college, I worked with disturbed teenagers and disturbed adolescents. That's what I did for a living. I worked my way through college, working in group homes with those teenagers, autistic teenagers. And so it really was personal for me, even more so when I heard about what he had done. And I was like, and I couldn't believe the conversation I was hearing. Oh, he would never do that. He would, and everyone was on his side. And then when I finally came out, everyone turned against him, and like
Well,
I
you're
shared with
lucky.
you, I was the only one who visited him in prison with my grandmother. So I would go to prison and visit him because I forgave him, but you can't forget. I mean, forgiving can be, for me, it was the easier part. But forgetting, it's like I think about it almost every day.
Oh, absolutely. I can relate to that. And
Nothing.
and I just wanted to tell you too that even if your father had abused other children, it wouldn't have been your fault because you didn't. I want you to know that it still wouldn't have been your fault. So whatever he did it's on him 100%. So I hope you know that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously I've gone through abuse with my mum, and then she's gone on to abuse my niece in the same way she abused me. I mean, thankfully my niece is now 16 and she's joining the army very soon. So she's got her escapes. She's actually got to the point where now she can escape my mum. And obviously the army will help her move on and start a fresh life now that she's going into adult life. I mean, I couldn't stand up and say something about my mum because it would affect my relationship with my dad. Even though my mum is trying so hard to destroy that relationship, and it is at the moment affected because I'm not actually speaking to my dad.
Yeah.
At least I know that my niece is okay.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. It's one of them.
Sometimes
Sometimes
we can.
you can't.
We're in that position. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
our hands
Well,
are
my
tied.
mom,
Sometimes literally.
my mom,
Yep.
Yeah.
my mom passed away way before my father did. And I think she lived in constant fear of him because the things he did right behind her back, it was just, she must have, I probably, because I had no knowledge, and this is something I don't think I really ever talked about on the Mental Health Warriors, but I don't, this is a good question for you guys, actually. I never realized there was such a thing as mental illness until I actually went through my breakdown and went to see my doctor. Like, if it wasn't for the breakdown, I don't think I would have realized how much mental illness, mental health, and wellness needs to be spoken about.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's, my mother must have. Well, I think that a pedophile has a mental illness, that's for sure. But my mother must have struggled horrendously with her mental health because of what he was doing and the way he treated us kids.
Yeah.
You guys want to give me some thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't know much about mental health until, obviously, I lost my nana almost 5 years ago, and my mental health sunk down to the point where I nearly ended my life. It came very close to ending my life. If it wasn't for Adam stopping me, I wouldn't be here today. So obviously, when I went through that, it was, right, okay, I need to change my life. And I got into learning about mental health. Adam had just started his journey on learning about mental health, and I wanted to basically do it as well to learn about it, to help myself. But then throughout that journey, I learned about myself, but then I learned a passion to want to help others. And I learned about mental illness and mental wellness. And I did, and obviously, like yourself, I realised that this isn't spoken about enough.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, there still is a massive stigma around mental health. When people try and speak out about the mental health is in a bad place, it's, oh, grow up, or you're just looking for attention. I mean, I've experienced that myself.
Right. And can I just tell
I've been
you,
called attention seeking. Go on.
can I just tell you that when people say that you're just looking for attention, my response to that is yes.
Thank you.
They are looking for attention.
Yes.
They need attention. They need you to notice what is going on.
Yes.
So
yeah, but the way they say it, it's, you're looking for the wrong sort of attention. You're just attention seeking, making things up and everything. I've actually been accused of lying about the abuse I went through with my mum. And it's like, you're actually defending her when you don't actually know the real person she is. Because she's a narcissist, it's all behind closed doors.
Yeah.
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 It's one of
It's
them.
two sides of the same coin, where you've developed a mental illness because of someone else's mental illness. It's almost like it's generational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you, Carrie, and it sounds like you as well, Mike, when I had my breakdown in February 2015, I had no idea what was going on with me. I mean, I knew of mental illness, I knew about depression, I knew about certain things, but until I experienced the depth of that type of just despair, um, it became my mission to learn everything that I could about it. And
Yes.
it seems like a common thread with people like us is we take our pain and our trauma and we try to take it and do something positive with it
Yes.
and help other people. And so I'm noticing a very common thread there with a lot of survivors that I talk to, that they're like, no, once I realized what was going on with me, I
Mhm.
realized that I needed to speak out about it because it's not okay. Victim blaming is not okay. Making little comments can be devastating,
Yes.
to a child's well-being and their mental health. So, and now I research as much as I can about different topics. The latest was parental betrayal, and exactly what is parental betrayal, and what
Mhm.
qualifies as that, and it's just so I can educate other people, and I think that's something um, that we should be proud of, because that's something my mom is kind of criticizing me about, that
Mhm.
I'm talking about it, that I'm, going on these podcasts, that I have my own podcast, that she's like, the next thing you're going to have a movie. And what she doesn't know is she's right, because I'm having a script written up right now. So, so be careful what you wish for, Mom. Um, but, it's just, we're very strong people.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I
think that when you are putting it out there, it like I went to see Silver Linings Playbook. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen that film or not, but both of the main characters are bipolar. They have mental illnesses, and I mean, but it's a phenomenal film. And I got to see a screening with Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, and people were asking questions at the end, and I got to stand up and I said, I just want you all to know that I hope you see what you've done here. You've you've kind of given people an opportunity to speak about this. And I said, I have relatives and I know people that will watch this and say, that's me on the screen. And they've never had that before. Not in a spoon-fed way, because it's very
Mm-hmm.
spoon-fed. This
Mm-hmm.
is who we are. This is our unbalance. This is our mental illness. I said, this is like a very, very powerful film, and you need to know that this is going to change everything on that horizon, and people now will be able to discuss it because they see themselves on the big screen and in that way. And I was just making a comment because I do have relatives that are bipolar and that have those issues, and I got like a standing ovation. Everyone was like, that was like the greatest thing anyone said, like
Oh.
all night, because people were just asking questions. How did you prepare? What did you
Oh,
wear?
yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh
The surface stuff,
no, it's much
yeah.
bigger than that. And then I didn't realize that the director actually based it on one of his family members, like that
Oh.
that had that was very, very bipolar. And I actually said, I think we're all bipolar to some extent, and some of us just hide it a little. But people need to talk about it, but they won't talk about it until they see it, and like what we're doing and putting it out there. And so people hear more about it and say, you know what, that's me. That's I get it when it resonates with people. So yeah.
And that's exactly why I want my story to be, on film, on the big screen, because, uh, you know, survivors of child sexual abuse, they need to see themselves on the screen. You hear a lot about celebrities and people that have, been abused by celebrities, but there are so many other children that are suffering that
Yep.
that it can be prevented. And my goal with, the script that I'm putting together is that it's going to demonstrate in the movie all of the signs and symptoms that perpetrators use, and and be educational at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of education, may I interrupt you?
of course.
The big stink. I'm sure it's happened in many countries, and as Canadians, we know what we struggled for to get sex education into school. But I guess what I'm trying to express is, from everything that I've learned so far from my journey, was that why would we want to suppress educating children about what a sexual perpetrator looks like?
Yeah.
Right? Sex education is so important
Yeah.
for people, because it's not about the sex act so much. It's more about your body and who's allowed to touch it and who's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't they
Yeah.
put the emphasis on that about education instead?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is a lot about it. I mean, some parents don't want the kids learning about sex education. I think there does need to be a twist on it where they teach children about consent. So you teach them about, what the private areas. So obviously for women, it's going to be the breasts and obviously between the legs, and obviously with men, it's between the legs. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to between the legs sort of thing. You get the idea.
Right.
But
Well,
teach them
actually,
about consent and about that it's okay for parents to help you to a certain degree, but then after a certain age, it's your parents back off, and it becomes your responsibility to look after you.
Yes.
I'd be all right with that. I mean, I teach my two about their bodies and what's private to them. And once they got to a certain age, it was, I can't help you in the shower anymore. It's down to you now. I'm trying to give you that privacy. Obviously, I'll help out if they ever need it, but
sure.
I don't want to intervene with their privacy now, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing that I wanted to add was, when we're talking about private parts, something that I think we need to expand on is that for men, it isn't just their private parts. They have nipples as well, and men can very much fixate on the nipples of other men. I think that we need to start teaching the boys that it's not okay for men to touch their chests, that private areas are the same for boys and girls, the chest, their private part, and their bottom. It's all the same, because that leaves no questions. No question.
Yeah, obviously in today's society, it's, I apologise. It's like in today's society, it's not just the birds and the bees; it's the birds and the birds and the bees and the bees.
Right.
Yes. It gets complicated now. It's like, okay.
Yes.
The body is the body is the body.
Is the body is the body is the body
Amen.
is the body.
Amen. Amen. So I'm sorry, but I actually do have to go. I was supposed to leave at 10:30, so I don't want to, but I do need to. I have people that are waiting for me to pick them up right now.
Of course.
I appreciate you popping on, Mike.
Oh, thank
nice
you.
To meet you.
Me. Nice to meet you both. Nice to
Yes,
meet you.
Enjoy the rest of your
Find you
day.
on Instagram if you're on Instagram. All right.
Yes,
Bye,
thank
you
you.
so much.
Bye.
Have a great rest of your day.
Bye for
You
now.
as well.
Bye.
So you're absolutely right, Carrie, about just the education, though, that we really have to focus on that, about consent, about, everything that you talked about, because it is so important, and why I don't understand why it's so stigmatized. Especially in the
Yeah,
US. I don't know how it is, where you guys are, but in the US, it's like it's so stigmatized to talk about anything
yeah,
sexual with kids, and it's like I would rather educate my children than them not be educated. I would rather
yeah,
teach my daughter
Yeah.
about condoms than, you know, preach abstinence knowing that I can't control that. You know,
yeah.
Yeah.
I would rather
Yeah,
her
I
be
think it's
prepared.
more thinking about like the younger ones, so like 5 and 6 years old. I mean, personally, I wouldn't teach a 5 or 6 year old or even 7 or 8, about condoms or anything like that.
No,
I'd base that more around their own body, their own awareness and consent,
of
and
course.
then maybe 9, 10, 11, maybe then start introducing it, depending on how parents feel about that.
No,
I mean,
absolutely, yes.
yeah, I
You
mean,
know, ladies,
obviously,
I will expand on something to intervene here a little bit.
yeah,
I will expand right down to the basics because of my own experience with my father
Hmm.
was that I am now a grandmother. My granddaughter is a year old. Okay. She's moving about, she's doing her thing, whatever, right? I don't touch her like to pick her up or to yes, there's of course I'm going to touch her hair or hold her
Yeah.
hand or things like that. But when it comes to her space, I'm talking about space. When it comes to her space, I don't impede her unless there's a safety issue. And you know why? Because from my own experience, people, not only just your private parts, it could be your arm, it could be your face, it could be your hair. My oldest daughter, she doesn't want anybody to touch her hair, okay,
Mhm.
because it triggers her for some reason or other. I have no idea why,
Mhm.
but it's someone's personal space, okay? And my granddaughter, being only a year old, she still can make her own decisions whether she wants to be picked up or not.
1,000%.
Right?
Yes.
So my experience as being fondled at a very young age, I'm sorry if this may be triggering for any viewers, I apologize, but being fondled at a very young age by without having my own ability to say no because I didn't understand, it didn't feel right, right? Because our intuition is so profoundly in us from birth, right? We know when we want to be picked up, we know when we need that attention, right? And if my granddaughter really wants to be picked up, she'll come to me and want to be picked up. If she wants a hug, then she'll accept when I hold my arms open, she'll come into my embrace. But what's happened is that it's been such a condition that our kids should say yes to every physical embrace, touch, blah, 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 blah. And I
Yes.
don't agree with that because of
I,
my own experience.
yes.
You should, my suggestion is to every viewer out there is always ask permission to touch you anywhere.
Anywhere. Anywhere.
Like anywhere. I don't care if
Whether
it's
it
a
be
hug, I don't
arm,
care if it's a
right,
kiss. When you touch somebody else's body, that's their body.
right.
Right? I'm so passionate about this because of my own experience,
yeah,
right? And I've taught
Absolutely.
that as a nanny, right? I ask kids, may I please give you a hug? Would you like to give me a hug? Right? When kids come up to you and they grab your hand and they want to hold your hand or they want to sit in your lap, they've given you permission,
Right.
right?
yeah,
Even still, you have to be very cautious where you put your hands when a
yeah,
child's sitting in your lap,
yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. On
It's
that
such
note, Annette, I think you and
yeah.
me should do a show all around this. But I've got 2 kids that are trying to kill each other upstairs, so I'm going to go deal with them.
Sure.
It's been lovely to meet you, Yvonne.
Likewise,
It's the
Carrie.
world of autism.
Yes, I
That's
understand. I
okay.
Best
have a
Totally
friends,
daughter.
but then they
understandable.
hate each other, so I'm going to go and deal with them, make sure they don't
Okay.
kill each other.
Good luck.
Give me a
Good
message,
luck.
Annette, and we'll set up a show where we can talk more about the issue.
Absolutely
All
would
right.
love
See you
it.
later.
I love that.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.